Bully's shocking attack on black girl exposed. You won't believe her father's incredible identity. Maya Johnson had always felt like a blip in the grand tapestry of her high school. Surrounded by neatly primed lawns and a community that touted itself as inclusive, she was often overlooked. It seemed that only the shadows of the hallways were aware of her presence as the buzz of laughter and self-assuredness hovered just beyond her reach. But today was different. Today would shatter her quiet existence. A viral video, her own degradation, pulled her into the unforgiving spotlight, exposing her to a world of cruelty she was ill-prepared to face. She felt the weight of every stare piercing through her, like needles tapping at her skin. Confusion danced with anger inside her, creating a tempest of emotions she could barely grasp. As she burst into the school, whispers of, "What happened?" and "Did you see the video?" wrapped around her like chains, pulling her deeper into despair. The shame left her breathless, questioning her very existence. Was she defined by a moment of humiliation, or did she still hold a stake in her own story? The claustrophobic feeling of her chest tightening became familiar, a constant reminder of her struggles. Silence echoed loudly in the cafeteria as she sat alone, her fingers tracing the cover of her notebook, searching for solace in unwritten poetry. Whispers swirled around her, igniting a sense of impending doom. She was the target of cruel jokes, of laughter disguised as concern. Would she ever be able to show the world her true self? Would that self even be accepted? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As Maya sank deeper into her own thoughts, she remembered her father, David, a guiding figure with a shimmering light in his eyes that spoke of resilience. He had worked tirelessly in his garage, often sharing stories of his own struggles, stresses that blurred his smile. But had he faced something like this? The juxtaposition of her father's past as a civil rights attorney and the codes of pride he instilled loomed large, almost crushing against her current reality. She felt a pull toward the strength he demonstrated, yet anxiety gnawed at her. Did he expect her to rise above? The pressure felt monumental, an echo of legacy, his struggles mingling with her own. Sitting in the corner of the library, her heart raced as her fingers raced over pages of verses, searching for words that articulated her turmoil. Yet the reality weighed heavily. Others laughed at her expense while she took refuge in ink and paper, desperately crafting a narrative that felt true. What would happen when her poetry wasn't enough to prove to the world she belonged? In that moment of heightened vulnerability, with her pen drawing tears instead of ink, a haunting thought rang through her mind. Would her story ever matter? Or was she merely a footnote in the saga of others? Just when she thought she may have found her voice, it felt like the world had conspired to silence her. As she lifted her gaze, determination locked into place. She would find out what her father truly knew about standing against injustice. But would that journey push her to reclaim her own voice, or drag her deeper into the shadows? The library felt like a sanctuary for Maya, yet its familiar smell of old pages mixed with anxiety as she struggled to find her footing in a world that felt hostile. The poetry sprawled before her was a reflection of her face, broken but yearning to be whole. She flipped through the pages, the verses echoing her turmoil, each line a window into the raw emotions she bottled inside. But they offered no clear answer. Instead, they darkened her thoughts, amplifying the insecurities that clawed at her spirit. Her father's legacy loomed large in her mind. He was a man of action, the kind who stood against oppression and taught the importance of making one's voice heard. But what value did his teachings hold when her own voice quivered under the weight of public scrutiny? The contrasts unsettled her. David had faced formidable battles. He had fought for rights and took pride in his achievements. Here she sat, reeling from a moment of personal violence inflicted by her peers. Their laughter sliced deeper than any physical scuffle. It threatened to erase her existence from memory, reducing her to a moment of humiliation. A storm brewed inside her, a mix of anger, self-doubt, and longing for purpose. It reached a breaking point as she watched a group of students snicker in the corner, a haunting reminder of her viral misfortune perpetually churning in social media playgrounds. She felt exposed under the fluorescent lights, shadows dancing along the walls, mimicking every twisted form of her own insecurity, flashing reminders that her struggle was very much still ongoing. And then it hit her. What if she took her pain and transformed it? What if her poetry could be more than an outlet but a weapon against the adversity that choked her? Her heart raced with a newfound mission, each beat forging resolve through her veins. But the thought of exposing her vulnerabilities terrified her. Would her words garner respect, or would they elicit pity? It was a gamble, and she wasn't sure of the stakes, her dignity, her voice, or perhaps a shot at reclaiming her identity. As she wrestled with this decision, she recognized intuition's whisper. She had a unique perspective. The world had thrust her into the limelight, and perhaps, rather than cower, she could shine in it. Her fingers itched to write, yet she hesitated, grappling with the fear of judgment. The urge to censor herself threatened to overshadow the cathartic release she desperately sought. She needed raw honesty that came from the core of her identity. Suddenly, David's words drifted back to her, a powerful mantra from their late-night talks. True strength comes from authenticity, Maya. It is in revealing who you are that you find your power. The realization wrapped around her like armor, both grounding and empowering. With a resolve to redefine her narrative, Maya opened her notebook wide and scribbled furiously. Her poem transformed with every line, a story emerging from the chaos. It was not simply about victimization. It would embrace resilience, complexity, and ultimately triumph. Still, her heart trembled with uncertainty. Was she truly ready to step into the fray? Would her voice echo beyond the whispers or drown beneath them? As the ink flowed, Maya knew change was coming. Each word was a step closer to the person she desired to become. And as she paused, contemplating her next line, the door swung open. A familiar figure entered, the vice principal known for dealing harshly with bullying cases. His eyes scanned the room before landing on her, a glint of business-like determination surfacing. The moment of confrontation was poised to arrive, a decision awaited, just as reprisal hung at her fingertips. Would she capitalize on this moment, or retreat into silence once more? Maya's heart pounded furiously against her chest as the vice principal stepped into the library, his presence like a sudden downpour on a bustling street corner. She felt a rush of self-consciousness wash over her, mixing with the determination that had only just begun to solidify. The man's reputation preceded him. He was known for his judicious handling of bullying cases, a fierce defender of those who suffered in silence. Yet here she was, poised in a moment of vulnerability. "Miss May," he spoke, his voice booming, yet tempered with an understanding that cut through the tension in the air. "I've heard troubling reports about you. It's crucial that we talk." Her instinct told her to shrink, to blend into the shadows of the library, to withdraw into the safety of her pages. But amidst the swirling storm of panic and humiliation, something within her stoked the fire she had ignited moments prior. She looked up, meeting his gaze with an intensity she didn't know she possessed. "Yes, sir." Her voice wavered slightly, betraying her inner turmoil, but she grounded herself. She had the power in this exchange, she realized. It was hers to wield. "Before we proceed," he said, and Maya noticed the shift in his demeanor, as if he were trying to evoke a sense of calm from the pulsing confusion surrounding them. "I want you to know that I'm here to support you. It's come to my attention that you've been targeted online, and I want to help you navigate this." Navigating the storm, he mentioned, was precisely what Maya had been grappling with. Her mind raced with thoughts of her poem, brewing in the depths of her notebook. Could she lay a foundation for reclaiming her narrative right here, right now? "Thank you, Mr. Collins," she managed, her pulse quickening with a mixture of hope and dread. "But I'm not sure where I fit in all of this. I feel like my voice has been stifled. I've become just another target." "I understand," he replied, nodding with sincerity, "but your voice matters, and I believe we can make a real difference." As he spoke, Maya's resolve deepened. This moment could act as a turning point, a juncture on her path to finding her place within the noise that threatened so long to drown her. With each exchanged word, the weight of her previous experiences surged, igniting her desire to confront the chaos head-on. "What if I shared my story?" she asked, almost impulsively. "What if I put my renewed poetry out there? Would that help?" Mr. Collins raised an eyebrow, surprise flickering through his expression. "You want to share your story through poetry?" Maya nodded, encouraged by his openness. She felt as though a dam within her had burst, allowing a current of courage to flow. Maybe he could help amplify her message. Maybe this wasn't just about her, but a chance to reach others who felt just as lost. "Absolutely, but it requires courage and vulnerability," he cautioned, his voice imbued with a respect for the difficulty inherent in such an endeavor. "It's a powerful tool, revealing personal truths. Are you ready for the potential backlash?" She swallowed hard, contemplating the implications of his words. The fear of judgment still loomed, but it was now countered with a burgeoning desire to let her experiences transform into something impactful. "Yes," she decided, her voice steadying. "At least, I want to try." The decision to expose herself was liberating yet terrifying. She was teetering on the edge of a precipice, ready to leap into the unknown. Yet, as she stood tall, bewilderment flooded her mind. In this moment of clarity, with possibilities stretching ahead, a thought blossomed stark and vivid. What might this look like on paper? As she turned to the pages of her notebook, a realization flared up. This was more than her story. It was a catalyst for change. But just as the creativity surged within her, the door swung wide again, and 3 students stepped inside, the very ones who had mocked her before. Maya's heart dropped, the remnants of her newfound determination swirling with anxiety. Would they see her strength, or only reflect back the pain of her vulnerability? The stage felt set, the tension strung tight within the air. Would this confrontation finally unveil her truth, or would it draw her back into the shadows she sought to escape? Maya's mind spun as she faced her former tormentors. The laughter that once pierced her bravado now wrapped tightly around her heart, squeezing the frightened energy from her. The trio paused, their attention fixed on her with a blend of curiosity and mockery. She wasn't invisible anymore. The attention felt foreign, yet oddly exhilarating. Her instincts screamed to retreat, to shield herself behind layers of self-doubt. Yet somewhere in the depths of her anxiety, that flickering resolve urged her to stand her ground, fists clenched around her notebook. It was her story, her truth, and they would not take that from her. "Look who's acting brave now," the girl in the front scoffed, her voice dripping with sarcasm. It was a familiar tone, one that had echoed in the recesses of Maya's mind during late-night battles with self-worth. But today, that tone sounded different, more like the whimpering of old echoes than a current threat. "Actually, I'm just getting started," Maya surprised herself by saying, her voice steady, surprising even her. "You've had your fun, but today I'm taking control. Mr. Collins, sensing the tension, stepped closer, his presence a silent support. Maya could feel the weight of his encouragement behind her. She inhaled deeply, choosing to channel the brewing storm within her into something that would cut through the hostility. "You think it's easy to tear someone down?" she continued, pushing through the rising fears of retaliation. "It's not. It hurts. And you're the reason I've hesitated to share who I am and what I've faced." The three students shifted uncomfortably, the mirth fading like a sunset clouded by darkness. This was a moment she had long imagined, yet nothing had prepared her for the surge of adrenaline now coursing through her veins. She could almost hear her heartbeat echoing in concert to the poetry waiting to be unleashed from her notebook. "Why even bother?" another mocked, but there was a tremor now, uncertainty leaking into their posturing. "No one cares about your dumb poems." "Then let me prove you wrong," Maya declared, her voice rising. She opened her notebook, its pages whispering out her thoughts. The words were raw and filled with the years of pent-up emotion that they had tried to suppress. "I'm scared, but I refuse to hide any longer." "Give it a rest, May," a boy snickered. But he faltered, the confidence in his voice shaking under the gravity of her proclamation. With Mr. Collins standing as a testament to her decision, Maya knew this was more than just a confrontation. It was the pivot point in her journey. She began reciting her poem, the words flowing with an intensity she had never felt before. Each line reflected the pain, the confusion, and ultimately the hope that had nestled in her heart long enough to break free. As the words poured out, she noticed the shifting expressions of her aggressors. No longer were they simply thorns in her side. They appeared uncertain, perhaps even troubled by their own actions. Her voice grew louder, fueled by the catharsis of reclaiming her narrative. Just then, one of them spoke up, their sneer no longer intact. "You're just saying all this for attention." It was a feeble attempt at dismissal, but the tremor in their voice hinted at something deeper, a flicker of insecurity. Maya paused, the breath hitching in her throat. They were scared too, she realized, perhaps contending with fears of their own identity, their own struggles masked beneath layers of aggression. The realization stung, yet sharpened her resolve. "Maybe you're right," she replied, suddenly more reflective. "But it's time for me to speak out regardless. Maybe it's time for all of us to stop hiding." An uncomfortable silence filled the air, the weight of her words settling heavily among them. This wasn't just her moment, it was an electric shift in the atmosphere, the potential for transformation shifting like a tectonic plate beneath their feet. As she finished her poem, an unexpected thing happened. Instead of laughter, she faced an unsettling quiet. Their dynamic altered but not yet transformed. Faces that had once worn sneers were now pensive, perhaps even introspective. But before she could process their reactions fully, a final voice rang out, desperate and crestfallen. "You think a couple of words will change anything?" The challenge was almost a plea layered in vulnerability. "It's just words." The very air thickened, and with it heartbeats and thoughts raced in a chaotic symphony. Maya's stomach twisted, and she stared down at her notebook, suddenly aware that she stood not just at a crossroads for herself, but a precipice for others. Determined not to waver now, she leaned into the challenge. Words have power, and trusting myself to speak them might just be the catalyst we all need. As the trio shifted uneasily, Maya sensed the ground restructuring beneath their feet, a tremor of change rumbling through the very fabric of their interactions. She was no longer a passive target. She was an active participant in shaping her narrative. The moment was charged. What transformations might reverberate from this confrontation? Would her words resonate, or would the old dynamics of intimidation revert once more? Maya felt herself standing on the threshold of not just her future but also theirs. Where this might lead her continued to hang in the air, an unanswered question waiting for her to pluck the courage to discover next. The silence stretched uncomfortably, the weight of Maya's words hanging between them like a fragile thread. Her heart raced as she processed the collective energy of doubt, curiosity, and something just shy of vulnerability playing across the faces of her former tormentors. They had expected meekness, not this fierce outpouring of her truth. And yet there she stood, a beacon of audacity igniting the air around her. As her mind wove through past memories, she felt a rush of determination bubbling up. This was her moment, not only to speak, but to redefine herself. She had been the narrative's victim long enough. Now it was time to become its author. Each breath pulled her closer to the realization of her newfound strength. In that electrifying moment, her words had morphed from mere poems into swords, cutting through the fabric of their cynicism. Yet the slightest quiver of fear still coiled deep within her. What if their unease morphed into something else? A pushback? A return to the cruelty she had once endured? She shook her head, forcing herself to dismiss that notion. Standing there, she reaffirmed to herself that she would not crumble under their judgment. Instead, she would lean into this unexpected power. Maybe it's just words, she echoed softly to the one who had challenged her earlier, but words can shake foundations. There was a strange urgency in her voice she didn't fully comprehend, but it thrummed through her veins like a drumbeat propelling her forward. Change starts somewhere, doesn't it? It starts with us not just existing but engaging, with honesty, with courage. Suddenly, realization flooded her mind as she recognized the anthem she had just unleashed. She understood that she was capable not only of articulating her experiences, but also of unlocking their voices hidden beneath layers of anger and scorn. The thought jolted her more than any confrontation ever would. Change might spread from her challenge like ripples in a pond. As the trio shifted uncomfortably, Maya became acutely aware of Mr. Collins observing her, a guardian in the sea of turmoil navigating her way into the depths of empowerment. The realization showered upon her like a warm ray of sunlight. She could be a catalyst for change, for others like her, still trapped in silence. "Why do we hide?" she asked, her voice steadying as she pressed forward. "What if we turned our pain into art? What if we transformed our experiences into something that can uplift us instead of tearing us down?" One of her former tormentors shifted again, glancing at the others, and Maya noticed the subtle shift in the air, as if the very essence of their dynamic was whispering a newfound truth. Vulnerability intertwined with defensiveness, showing the cracks that had formed in their once strong facades. Maya's resolve surged in that moment, emboldening her to take a step forward. She continued, undeterred by the currents of doubt. "Perhaps after today we can be more than just labels. Rather than hiding behind masks of bravado to shield our insecurities, we could stand up and share our narratives, every single one of us." Just then, a quiet whisper penetrated through the tension, a spark of something that lingered just below the surface. "But what if we fail?" It was a boy's voice, tinged with trepidation, echoing the fears that swirled in all their hearts. For the first time in what felt like forever, Maya's instinct told her that failure was not just inevitable, but a necessary part of growth. "What if we do fail?" she challenged, the thrill of defiance glimmering in her eyes. "But what if we succeed? What if we unlock strength we never knew existed?" The atmosphere thickened with possibility as she stood taller, aware that the words she used could forge vital connections, not just destroy lives. Each syllable reverberated deep within her as she let the potential of change seep into her being, daring to entertain the notion that transformation was possible for them all. The trio shifted, exchanging glances that spoke 1,000 unspoken words, leaving Maya teetering on the edge of anticipation. She could sense that they were undergoing a change, however gradual. But it was a precarious balance, and the ground beneath her felt fragile. A sudden burst of laughter erupted from one of the boys, sharp and jarring, piercing through the veil of earnestness like a needle through fabric. "You really think this is going to change anything?" he tossed toward her mockingly. A chill swept through Maya. Did she truly believe in this shift, or was it merely hope fighting against despair? The reality of her words surged forward again, and she caught her breath, bracing herself for the fallout. "Change isn't immediate," she countered, resisting the urge to retreat. "It's a journey we take step by step, together. And I refuse to go alone." The silence that followed felt different, heavier, yet charged with an undeniable potential. The air shimmered with the weight of uncharted territory, and Maya could sense that the moment wasn't passing her by. It had become a defining juncture for both her and them. This could be the doorway into transformation, or simply another cycle of old patterns. As their expressions curled into uncertainty, she realized the journey ahead would demand more courage than she'd shown today. She needed to be prepared, willing to confront not just their doubts, but her own about what lay ahead. The moment felt thick with unanswerable questions, yet the biggest lingered in her mind. What did success look like for them? Would they emerge as allies or retreat into the shadows? With her heart racing, she stepped forward one more time, her hand gripping her notebook tightly, a line drawn in the sand, a commitment to embrace whatever unfolded next. But as she looked at them, she could already feel the gravity of choice looming large, waiting silently for a response that would echo loud enough to change the course of their lives forever. Would they rise with her, or would they watch her fall? Maya's heart thudded in her chest as the echoes of laughter faded into an uneasy quiet. She stood there, every nerve tingling with the weight of her challenge, her vulnerability laid bare before the trio. Would they push her away, or would they take a step closer? The air between them buzzed, charged with unspoken emotions, and for the first time she genuinely questioned her impact. "Success?" she repeated, the word tasting foreign yet liberating on her tongue. "What does success mean to each of us? Is it the absence of pain, or the presence of courage to confront it?" She watched their faces shift, analyzing each flicker of expression. It was becoming evident that they were intrigued, perhaps even irritated by their own curiosity. In that moment of uncertainty, she seized the opportunity to probe deeper, wanting to draw them into this shared journey. "Let's start by acknowledging what we've faced, the scars we carry. Those scars have stories. Let's give them a voice." The change in her tone was subtle yet fierce, igniting a spark of hope in her gut. A girl, quiet until now, finally spoke. "I don't want to go back. It hurt too much." Her admission was raw, saturated with fear, yet laced with a hint of courage. Maya saw her shoulders soften, the tension easing as she let go of a burden wrapped in silence. "Then let's move forward together," Maya urged, emboldened by the moment. "Every story matters. We can turn that hurt into something meaningful." She glanced around, searching for signs of agreement, and for the first time noticed the small nods, the pacing glances between the three of them. But the laughter lingered in her mind, a haunting reminder of their past dynamics. Would it be that easy? Or was this merely a temporary reprieve before the tide turned again, swallowing her words back into the depths of scorn? Doubts began to creep back in, gnawing at the edges of her newfound strength. The boy who had initially mocked her dropped his gaze, and she felt a flicker of vulnerability radiating around him. "But what if working together doesn't help?" he choked out, his voice barely above a whisper. "What if we just end up hurting each other more?" Maya took that as an opening to confront not only him, but her own reservations. "What if we do? What if we stumble and make mistakes? That's part of this process. The fear of failure can't define us." With each word, her conviction grew, swelling deeper into her core. We can't hide from pain. We have to confront it to see the healing on the other side. As her words unfolded, she could see their walls beginning to crack. The energy shifted. Hesitation morphed into the soft murmur of possibilities. This was a pivotal moment, a potential awakening, but with uncertainty still lurking in the shadows. Yet something was still missing. The fear, the potential for backlash, loomed like a thunderstorm brewing on the horizon. What if this didn't work out? What if they revolted against her once more? Naysayers would erupt like quicksand, dragging her down with them. Even as she contemplated these fears, the quiet girl's words echoed in her mind. I don't want to go back. What if we create something bigger than our pain? Maya proposed, her voice steady, her resolve hardening into something unbreakable. What if we harness our experiences to inspire others? Could we be storytellers instead of recluses? The trio's eyes widened, and she marveled at the potency of her own statement. Storytellers. In that moment, she realized how far she had come. She was no longer just the voice of past torment. She could be the one beckoning each of them to emerge, to step into the light cast by their shared narratives. Yet the challenge before them was immense, and doubt still pressed like a weight on her chest. Would they accept this invitation to growth? Or would they shy away, retreating into their old defenses? An unexpected silence covered the space again, thick with the weight of choice. Would they echo her resolve, join her on this journey, or sabotage their own potential in fear of what lay ahead? As this uncertainty loomed, something deeper flickered in Maya, a nagging sense that she was about to uncover something vital, not only about them, but about herself. A single thought crystallized in her mind as she faced them, her heart pounding with the pulse of what was to come. Change could be potent, transformative, but only if they chose to take that leap. In a world filled with shadows, they could become the light, but at what cost? The room thickened with anticipation, a quiet understanding beginning to tether them together, and she took another breath, ready for the next step, wherever it might lead. Would they rise to face that uncertainty with her, or would they shy away once more? As that question hung in the air, Maya braced for an answer that could alter the course of her life irrevocably. Maya sensed a shift, the electric charge in the room swelling with a palpable tension, each person's gaze locked onto hers, a spool of uncertainty intertwined with glimpses of hope. They were at a crucial crossroads, and she felt the responsibility resting on her slender shoulders, pressing her resolve into something sharper. The quiet girl finally broke the silence. I've always wanted to write, she said, her voice a quiet tremor. But I've never had the courage to share. What if I'm bad at it? Maya took a step closer, the urge to bridge the gap overpowering any insecurity she felt. You won't know unless you try, she insisted, her mind racing with the urgency of the moment. This is about embracing who we are, every piece, every imperfection. It's scary, but it's the only way to find our voices. The boy, who once scoffed dismissively at her ideas, lifted his gaze, curiosity mingling with apprehension. What if we just end up more exposed? What if others tear us apart? His argument hung heavy in the air, challenging her burgeoning confidence. Maya considered his words deeply, her heartbeat quickened by the raw honesty he displayed. Then we learn to stitch ourselves back together, she replied carefully. Every wound tells a story. Isn't that better than remaining silent? She could see the walls shifting, the hesitation appeased by a flicker of understanding. Still, doubt whispered insidiously in her ear. Could this really work? Maybe they were too fractured to create something beautiful from their pain. Let's take a step, she proposed, recalling the external challenge of turning their shared scars into art. What if we start by writing down our stories? No one else has to see them. The trio exchanged glances. internal struggles evident on their faces. An unspoken question danced among them. Would they embrace vulnerability as an avenue for growth? The atmosphere thickened with the intensity of potential. Nothing felt certain yet. The girl nodded first, reluctantly. "I'll try," she whispered, "but it's not easy." Maya let a small smile break through her anxiety. "Nothing worth it ever is. I'll share mine too," she said, her voice steady now. "We'll write separate pieces and share them when we feel ready. There's power in our narratives, and by sharing them, we could help each other heal." The boy lifted his chin, a flicker of defiance in his eyes. "Fine, I'll write something stupid too, just to see." His bravado was tinged with uncertainty, but it felt like a vital shift. A small wave of relief coursed through her. They were inching towards connection, daring to step away from self-imposed isolation. But the fear still lurked. Had she encouraged them into a vulnerable space, only to be met with ridicule again? They sat in a circle, the air heavy with unspoken promises. Each had emerged from the depths of their doubts, the frailty of their fears starkly laid out. Maya could see cracks forming in the armor they wore. Beneath the bravado, the backgrounds of their stories began to show. As they delved into this new phase, Maya felt a flutter of excitement meld with trepidation. There was a chance to unleash something powerful, a collaborative engagement that could transform them all in unforeseen ways. But the spectre of past hurt reminded her that their road would be fraught with peril. Closing her eyes for just a moment, she envisioned the possibilities. They could write separately, yet grow together, crafting pieces that would reflect their truths. Yet that vision remained fragile, like a budding flower that needed light, but was equally susceptible to harsh winds. They began discussing themes, ideas, and approaches. Each contribution painted a broader picture, revealing glimpses into their struggles and strengths. Maya's heart raced with anticipation, the revelations transforming the way she viewed her own creativity. She began to understand that vulnerability was not a weakness, but the raw material from which strength was forged. As the conversation flowed, questions sparked within her. What else could they uncover? What untapped potential lay dormant within each of them, just waiting to bloom? The craving for discovery surged within her, driving her to confront not just their fears, but her own nagging self-doubt. Maya wondered if she had the capability to lead, not just by example, but by true empathic understanding. Could she steer the group through their next challenge? A deeper examination of their pain, to extract the transformative stories waiting to emerge. The prospect felt daunting, yet thrilling. But just as new energy began to manifest, Maya sensed opposition brewing in the shadows. The lingering thoughts of rejection whispered unsettling reminders of her past failures, creeping back into her mind as she prepared for this journey ahead. Whether real or imagined, the stakes felt monumental. As the workshop took shape, an unsteady blend of exhilaration and anxiety gripped Maya. She understood they were on the precipice of something significant, yet a gnawing apprehension clawed at her insides. Still, she clung to her vision tightly as the group made tentative commitments to share their drafts. They finished for the day, hesitant glances mutual, but laden with something resembling hope. The question loomed larger now. Could she inspire them to fully embrace the unfiltered truths of their lives? And as they headed off to reflect, she asked herself if she could confront her own demons lurking within the shadows. The path to becoming storytellers had just begun, but what awaited them further down that road remained uncertain. Maya awoke the next morning, the sun filtering through her window, stealing over her restless thoughts like a hesitant hand. The exhilaration from the night before had transformed into a muted echo resounding with uncertainty. Today marked the first real step in transforming vulnerability into strength, yet the creeping doubts from yesterday clung like shadows just out of reach. Taking a deep breath, she settled into her workspace, a small corner of her room strewn with notebooks, pens, and haphazard drafts of past writings. She was determined. With a fresh cup of coffee in hand, she opened her notebook, staring blankly at the page. The stark white surface loomed ominously, quietly daring her to mark it. "Write it down," she quietly commanded herself, remembering the hesitant faces of her companions. They needed her to lead, but leading took energy, an energy she wasn't sure she possessed today. Flipping through her notebook, she found remnants of stories she had penned in moments of clarity, each a fragment of her turbulent thoughts. Her gaze lingered on a piece about fear. The words felt familiar. A chorus of her insecurities echoed back to her. What if she couldn't carry them through this process? What if her words fell flat, unhelpful, or worse, reminiscent of her past failures? The irony wasn't lost on her. She stood at a crossroads, where emerging as a leader could also mean revisiting her fears head-on. She closed her eyes and imagined each of her past moments of fear as a thread woven into a tapestry. What did that tapestry reveal about her? A swirl of emotions and experiences, all screaming for recognition and validation. Gritting her teeth, she committed to facing these stories. She was not just a participant in their shared workshop. She was the pulse that could revive their broken spirits. Yet, did she have a right to believe in her own narrative? In that moment of contemplation, a soft knock came at her door, and it swung open. Her mother appeared, radiating the calm and confidence that often felt foreign to Maya. "Hey, kiddo, ready for today?" Her smile was simple, but it anchored Maya's thoughts. "Trying to be," she murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. "Are you still worried?" her mother asked, settling beside her. "You remember when you first thought you couldn't sing in public?" Maya nodded, recalling the fingers trembling on the microphone, the fear of judgment. "Remember how you did it anyway? You took that leap, and people loved it. You became stronger because you faced that fear," her mum encouraged, driving home the analogy Maya needed. Others were relying on her bravery now. Perhaps writing could become a sort of singing for them. Rising with newfound resolve, Maya grasped her pen tightly, no longer a mere tool for writing, but an extension of her thoughts. She started to draft the challenges they could explore together, pausing at moments to map her own fears alongside theirs. Each word felt like a step forward. At their meeting later that day, she laid out her drafted ideas, hoping to inspire their group to embrace the discomfort of vulnerability. Would they see the parallels in her journey? Would it reassure them that they were not alone? As they gathered again, an array of nervous energy buzzed around the room. The trio had visibly matured since their last meeting, yet apprehensions lingered like stray clouds before a storm. She could sense it. Hesitation gripped at their hearts, much like her own. "Let's share our drafts," Maya suggested, her voice steady despite the flutter in her chest. Each response was tentative, revealing fears of inadequacy, but also an awakening of mutual trust. They spent the next hours immersing themselves in raw, upright honesty. With each narrative shared, Maya became acutely aware of the power their revelations held, not just in the stories themselves, but in the act of sharing. With trembling words, the quiet girl unveiled her aspirations of a future as a writer. While the boy spoke of his longing to portray the truth of his struggles, the weight of expectations anchoring him down. But beneath the surface, Maya felt a new layer of tension materializing, the need for confrontation. What would they do when faced with real fallout, judgment, or hostility? The fragile connection they were forming could shatter with one careless word or look. Could she guide them through that storm? Maya realized it was time to consider the possibility of external conflict, the very real repercussions of being seen, judged, and perhaps even bullied. That, she understood, was a risk they would need to face together. The atmosphere thickened with tumultuous emotions, and amid the swelling determination and vulnerability, a distinctive question lingered in her mind. What dangers awaited them outside these walls as they embraced their newfound voices? She could feel the silent weight of the moments to come, shivering just beneath the surface, poised on the brink of their journey into the unpredictable world of self-expression. Maya spent the following days enveloped in a thick fog of preparation. Every moment that wasn't devoted to school or family was consumed by thoughts of the workshop. She could hardly ignore the pulse of anxiety thrumming beneath her skin, a constant reminder of the vulnerability they were inviting into their lives. Would they be ready to confront their fears together when the outside world threatened to judge them? During this time, she sensed the underlying currents of her group dynamic shifting. Jake was growing more withdrawn, a shadow of his previous self. He had often chimed in with earnest enthusiasm, but lately his laughter had faded, replaced by an ocean of contemplation that tugged at Maya's heart. She wondered if he felt the weight of their discussions' implications, knowing his own painful truths might soon be laid bare not just to the circle, but to their peers. One afternoon, after an unusual silence at their usual meeting spot, Maya finally broached the subject. "Do you guys want to talk about how this might affect us when we leave this space?" Her voice came out softer than intended, but she pressed on, eyes fixed on Jake. "I'm scared," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "What if people don't understand? What if they don't see what we're trying to do here?" The room exhaled, the unspoken fears surfacing as they began to share their trepidations. Gabby spoke up next, her delicate features scrunching together in worry. "What if they laugh? What if I say something stupid? I mean, it's risky being honest." Maya felt the tension in the room shift. Each of them was engaged in a personal battle, torn between the desire to express themselves and the fear of being ridiculed. But beneath the apprehension, she identified a flicker of courage, a tentative willingness to break free from the chains of silence. It only took the courage of one to strengthen the group. "I think if we share our stories like we talked about, we can turn that fear into something powerful," Maya encouraged. "What if this is our opportunity to challenge the bullies out there, show them that we're more than what they see?" Their eyes seemed to lock on her for a moment, igniting curiosity mingled with trepidation. Yes, vulnerability would render them susceptible, but it could also galvanize them into a formidable force. Yet as the words hung in the air between them, another question arose in the recesses of her mind. Was she strong enough to stand at the front line of this battle? That night, she paced back and forth in her room, repeating Jake's words like a battle cry. What if they don't understand? It resonated, echoing through her like a haunting refrain. She longed to shake off the oppressive chains of doubt, but what if her inexperience left them exposed? Choosing vulnerability had never come without risk, but she wasn't about to let fear dictate their fate. Days passed, and as they meticulously crafted their narratives, Maya noticed subtle transformations among her peers. They shared their drafts with heightened intensity, revealing not only vulnerability, but also resilience. Jake, who had once withdrawn into an emotional shell, emerged like a chrysalis, his words forging connections that left splintered echoes of once muted pain. Yet with each breakthrough came a fresh wave of anxiety. The potential for backlash loomed closer, like menacing clouds threatening to upend them just when they started to ascend. Maya couldn't shake off the unsettling feeling that the storm was arriving faster than anticipated. The workshop neared a pivotal moment, one that felt as fragile as the paper on which they had scrawled their truths. They decided to perform their stories aloud at a casual gathering of friends, a prelude to something larger. The nervous energy in the room was palpable, each member on the brink of sharing their hidden selves. Would they empower each other or crumble in fear? At the brink of their courageous leap, Maya looked around the room. The faces of her companions were lit with determination, yet shrouded in fear. Just as she was about to speak, the door swung open. "Forgive the interruption." It was Jake's classmate Anna, sauntering in with an air of bravado. The moment she set eyes on Maya and the others, Maya could see the amusement flickering in her features like candlelight, a predator stalking its prey. "Are you really about to share your sad little stories?" Anna's laughter echoed, dripping with mockery. Maya's heart raced, and just when she thought they were strengthening against the tide of judgment, a battle she hadn't anticipated began. Could they muster the fortitude to face an external challenge as fear threatened to engulf them again? The moment of truth was arriving, and with it came the realization that defending this sacred space they had nurtured would demand an unwavering strength few could fathom. Maya stood at the forefront of a tumultuous moment, feeling Anna's words slice through the air, heavy with ridicule. The laughter echoed off the walls of their workshop, and the very room that had once felt safe now crackled with tension. Anna's presence threatened to destabilize the fragile confidence that Maya and her companions had painstakingly built. But instead of retreating, Maya felt an unexpected surge of determination. For too long, she had allowed others to define her narrative. Now was the time not only to defend her story, but also to stand firm for everyone involved. The echo of her father's teachings blossomed within her. "Authenticity breeds strength" was a refrain she held close. In that charged moment, she turned to her friends, searching for a shared resolve. She saw their eyes wide with fear and uncertainty, their vulnerabilities laid bare. "This is exactly what we anticipated," Maya began, her voice steady, resonating with the conviction that had crystallized within her. "And this is why we're here, because no one should be judged for sharing their truth." Their murmurs cascaded into silence, a collective breath held tight in the atmosphere. Maya felt the universe tilt slightly in her favor. "Anna, you may not understand our journey, but that doesn't diminish its importance. Each of us carries scars, and these poems, they're our battle cries, not jokes at our expense." The laughter around Anna faltered as doubt flickered in her eyes. She hadn't expected this. A ripple of energy coursed through the group, igniting a shared sense of purpose. Maya took a deep breath, allowing the adrenaline of confrontation to fuel her further. "Why are you here?" Maya pressed, her gaze unwavering. "To mock us, or to maybe, just maybe, learn something from our experiences?" The question hovered in the air, charged and potent, and Anna visibly struggled with her response. The ripple of discomfort among her friends was palpable, their solidarity forming a protective barrier around their shared vulnerability. "I'm not here for a therapy session, I came to have a laugh," Anna finally retorted, but the bravado was fraying at the edges. Maya shook her head, refusing to cower. "Then that's sad, because beneath your facade, I wonder if you're masking something worth exploring, just like the rest of us." That struck a chord. A sense of unease replaced Anna's confident facade as murmurs danced around the room, a potent acknowledgement that even the most hardened exteriors often mask pain. "Maya, maybe we should just ignore her," Gabby suggested quietly, anxiety still evident in her voice. "No," Maya replied with a firm nod. "This is the moment we redefine the narrative. We're not just sharing our stories, we're demonstrating our courage." She turned back to Anna, the courage of her convictions transforming into a defiant stance. "Do you feel strong when you put others down? Is it power to you?" The question was an invitation for introspection, shushing the crowd's criticisms. "This isn't about you," a member of their group suddenly piped up, a spark of animosity threading courage into their words. "If you only show up to pick on us, then you're missing out on the truth of it all, and maybe that's exactly what you need to face." The collective realization hung in the air. Their voices combined were a powerful force, echoing across the walls of the workshop. Maya felt gratitude for every moment they had shared. This was the transformation she had strived for, What had once felt frail between them solidified into an unbreakable bond, an allyship that rendered Anna's taunts inconsequential. And so, it was with newfound power that Maya looked at her peers. "Let's move forward together. Let's share our truths. Words are stronger than judgment, and I believe we're about to prove that." She nodded for encouragement, iterating it was time to embrace their collective strength. With purposeful resolve lighting up her features, she felt emboldened as she turned towards Anna one last time. "You might have come here to laugh, but we're the ones grappling with courage, transforming our pain into power. Each story we share is a testament to our resilience, and it sounds like you need a bit of that too." For the first time, Anna seemed to fade slightly into the background. The strength radiating from Maya and her group sparked reflections in others. Moments of doubt dissipated, confidence shining through. The conversation surged, and those that witnessed it began breaking barriers between their sanitized selves and more authentic representations of growth. Despite their misgivings, one by one, Maya's peers began to recount their own stories. Gabby shared her fears of inadequacy, the feelings of being overlooked that echoed long in her heart. Jake's fierce sincerity opened up wounds of his own, and as he shared, Maya felt proud and fulfilled in his vulnerability. Every story, every truth laid bare, transformed the atmosphere again, charging it with triumph and unity. The external confrontation had morphed into introspection, gazing deeper into their collective heart. As they poured their honesty into the space, Maya felt herself shift too. She wasn't simply facilitating this experience anymore, she had become part of its heartbeat. When Anna finally left, it wasn't with the laughter of triumph she had entered with. Instead, it was a solemn moment of realization, a tableau of shifting dynamics and the acceptance of the power of vulnerability. In that instant, Maya conquered her own narrative. She had emerged from obscurity, a participant in her transformation and catalyst for others. The recognition she once sought from peers was fulfilled through genuine connection. This episode redefined her strength. She felt grounded, no longer merely surviving, but thriving, replete with newfound confidence. As they stood up to share their final drafts at the forthcoming gathering, the chorus of their voices promised something beautiful, a testament to their movement from shadows into the light. She achieved far more than she anticipated. This was the moment when she truly found her voice and gathered comrades who were willing to wield theirs with equal ferocity. Maya's journey proved that authenticity was a powerful anchor. It had painted her truth with strokes of courage and resilience. Finally, she reveled in the understanding that vulnerability could indeed fuel growth, not just for herself, but for those willing to step into their own light, forging ahead to claim their truths in life's unfolding story. You need to subscribe now to see the incredible journeys of resilience and personal transformation unfold at every turn. Leaving a like helps spread these powerful narratives, feeding the algorithm that keeps these stories alive. Don't wait another second. Comment below with your reflections and theories on Maya's journey, and let's spark a meaningful conversation. Share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this narrative of brave storytelling, empowering them to reclaim their voice.